So I'm on vacation this week, and while I was here at the place doing some of my chores and catching up, I recalled a trucker story that I might share with y'all. That this took place back in the early to mid 80s, I reckon, before Walmart, was a household name. And anyway, I was in Mankato, Minnesota, and stopped in the local Walmart there. Kind of do a little walk around, get out of the truck for a little bit and buy a few items that, paid way too much money for in the truck stop. And so I was in there doing just a little walk around while I'm in there. It was kind of a treat to be in a Walmart. And I, went and I got some toothpaste and some shaving cream and, mouthwash and just toiletry items. And as I'm walking around, I noticed this old fella kind of following me around the store. And, I'd be at the end of one aisle and I'd look and he'd be looking at me around the corner or something like that. Kind of weird, older fella, and I was, in my late 20s, early 30s maybe at the time, probably late 20s. But it wasn't a big deal. But just everywhere I'd go, I'd look, I'd happen to glance over my shoulder or something, he'd be staring at me, So I had my few items, and I went up to where they had all the magazines and stuff, and I was leafing through some magazines, and he come and walked up to me, and he said, "I guess you noticed I've been following you." And I said, "Yeah, I did notice, to be honest. A little bit uncomfortable about it." He goes, I thought so. He said, "I thought so. That's why I wanted to come up and say something to you." He said, "But man," he says, "you resemble my son just almost to the T," he said. And he said, "I lost him a few years ago in the war." And he said, "But you really remind me of him, And I said, "Well, I'm sorry about your loss, I shook his hand and everything. He says, he said, "Would you do me a favor?" And I said, "Well, if I can, I'd be happy to." He said, "I know it probably seemed a little weird, but man, you just look so much like my son." He said, Would you call me Dad?" I say it a little bit weird, but, make this old man happy, Well, I said, "Sure." And I kind of reached over and patted him on the back and said, "Sure, Dad, He said, man, he just got a big smile on his face. And I thought, that's a pretty good deal. Made the old man happy, and he thanked me again and, apologized. And I said, no problem. So he went on about his business and I went on about mine. And I think I picked up a paperback book, I believe. So I added that to my Dentyne, my shaving stuff. And then I picked up a pack of Dentyne gum also. And as I'm checking out, he was ahead of me in the line. And I'm looking around at some of the impulse items, they call them, and he got done and he went on and he raised up his hand to wave at me, and I said, "Bye, Dad," He said, "Bye, son," feeling pretty good about myself, and got up there to pay for my few items I had there, and it come out to $138.75. I said, "Well, you've made a mistake, ma'am." She said, "No, I haven't." And I said, "Well, I've only got just a few items here. It can't be 100. She goes, "Well, your dad said you was going to pay for his." I said, "Well, that ain't my dad." She goes, "Well, sir, you called him Dad. You said, 'Bye, Dad.' And he did tell me that his son was going to pay for that." And I said, "Well, I ain't his son, and I ain't going to pay." She says, "Well, sir, I don't know what to tell you. You acknowledged that he was your dad, that he left with the items, and you are going to have to pay." I said, "I ain't going to pay." I said, "You just hold on a minute." Well, I hot-footed it outside, and I'm looking across the parking lot, and I can see this old geezer just getting it across the parking lot, and he goes to jump in his van. And, I was pretty spry in them days. I ran up there behind him, and just as he's getting in, I reached down and grabbed his leg, and he's kicking at me and kicking at me and kicking at me, and I'm trying to yank him out of there, pulling on his leg, and he's kicking at me, and I'm pulling on his leg, just like I'm pulling on y'all's leg right now. Hope you enjoy that. That was one of my Uncle Steve's favorite stories to tell. And he could sure tell it a lot better than I could, but I hope you all enjoyed it.